Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome back to the Tremors re-review series. No beating around the bush with this one. Today, me and good old Trevor boy.
Howdy, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
We'll be talking about the fucking spectacular relaunch of the franchise, Tremors 5 Bloodlines, released in 2015.
Hey, Nick.
Huh.
This is a damn good movie. This is a damn good movie.
Okay, Captain Obvious. Jump right into your personal history because I said it in my ranking the Tremors video, but I'm going to repeat it here. So go right ahead, Trev.
Yeah, okay, so mine's not very long. Kind of like with Jurassic Park 4, although that was a bit more high profile, to say the least. This was one of those movies that I was waiting for a long time, and it just never seemed like it was coming. I didn't wait over it near as much as JP4, because I kind of thought, well, maybe Tremors 5 isn't going to happen. But I still was looking forward to both, and it just seemed like for a good while, it was like, okay, I guess this isn't going anywhere. And just whenever I stopped thinking about them, that's whenever the progress started being made again. For a little while, it seemed like whenever Stampede was going to make this movie, it sounded like Val and Earl were probably going to be back, but that was probably wishful thinking.
Yeah.
That was stuff that was rumors that were floating around. It was also going to take place in Australia because S.S. Wilson clearly wanted to go to Australia at some point. But yeah, anyway, so like I said, the minute I stopped thinking about it is whenever it actually happened. And whenever this finally came out, October 2015, 6 years ago now, almost. Yeah, I watched this on Netflix, and I felt like I was right at home again. So yeah, that's my very brief but still memorable history with the movie.
I have a lot of very fond memories regarding this movie because it came out just at the perfect time. So, similar to Trev, I found out about this movie right around I was starting to get that itch to watch a new Tremors movie. So I was doing research on the Tremors franchise, and I come across the part of a Wikipedia page that has that compartment where if you have like a franchise, just has a bunch of links to different parts of the franchise. I look down, and if it's in blue, that's an available link. But if it's in red, that's either like a link in progress or just not a full link. In red, in parentheses, I see Tremors 5 Bloodlines. And I was in my movie making class and I said out loud, "What? There's another Tremors movie on the way." So I eagerly awaited Tremors 5. And as soon as it became a full link, I clicked on it and it said Tremors 5 is an upcoming direct-to-video monster movie, which is set to be released October 6, 2015. So, in 2015, Tremors 5 was probably the number one movie that I was looking forward to the most. And when it finally came out, I was in a pretty good state of mind at the time. I had just moved out of my dad's, moved into a better part of my town, moved into a better living situation, and I had just graduated high school, so I was kind of on cloud nine. I was free from the shackles of school and living with my dad, so I was feeling very free. I was just out walking around my neighborhood, just enjoying freedom, when my mom called me over and said, "Hey, you want to come visit for a little bit? We got dinner." So I decided to walk over, and I realized that, oh yeah, it's October 6th. Let's look on Netflix and see if Tremors 5 is there. And my stepdad is a pretty decent Tremors fan, and he learned that there was a Tremors 5 the night that we watched it. Because I asked to look on Netflix. Lo and behold, there was Tremors 5. So I was like, "Can we watch this, please?" So we did. And I gotta say, it was one of the most fun fucking movie experiences I've ever had in a long time at the time. I had a total fucking blast watching this movie. I was like, oh, my dreams have come true. There is a God. We have Tremors 5.
Me too, to be honest. Though I celebrated by myself, because I'm the big Trimmy in my household.
And so, despite my amount of nostalgia, surprisingly, I haven't watched this movie that many times. But there was another time where I watched it with a friend of mine where he and I were going on a little Tremors craze. We watched Tremors 3, a couple episodes of the show, and Tremors 5, and we had a total blast watching it that time too. Tremors 5 is a fucking masterpiece. Said this already. This is my favorite Tremors movie. For a long time, it was too, and I didn't even realize this was my favorite until I did my original Tremors 5 review. But yes, this is my favorite of the whole series. And I know there's a lot of people out there that surprisingly don't like the post-Stampede Tremors era, but I really don't get how anybody could hate Tremors 5. This was made with a lot of effort, passion, and drive to make this as good as possible. And they succeeded 100,010%. This movie is fucking great. Plot time. Unless you want to add anything beforehand.
No, this is definitely top 3 movies in the franchise at the very least.
So I'm going to go over the plot, and there is something that Trev wants to talk about once I get done with the plot. So I'm going to try to get through this because it sounds like he has a lot to say about some of the creative process when it came to this movie. But Burt Gummer.
Well, yes,
What?
Yes and no, but we'll get there. Yes and no, but we'll get there. I'm going to spread it out through our stuff.
Burt Gummer, now a star in his own survivalist web series, and his new cameraman, played by Travis Welker, played by Jamie Kennedy, and also once again Burt being played by Michael Gross, are approached by South African Wildlife Ministry agents Eric Van Dyck and Johan Dreyer, who hire them to deal with ass blasters in South Africa. Flying to the location, Burt befriends their pilot, Ben Bravers, played by Ian Roberts. But Burt's heavy weaponry is impounded due to South African gun laws in the process. Eric provides them with a small collection of guns he has gathered, although Burt protests that their caliber is far too small to kill the monsters. The team set up their quarters at an animal refuge where Travis befriends a little girl named Amale and soon falls for Dr. Nandi Montabu, played by Pearl Thusi. Yeah, Thusi. What?
Nothing. I'm just basking in the glory. Continue.
The girl's being Amale's mother. This starts a rivalry with a local named Baruti, who is also in love with Nandi. 2 paleontologists celebrate after finding the fossilized remains of a graboid at a dig in a surprisingly really risque scene for a Tremors movie. Because the Tremors series never really was like entered slasher territory with being really sensual with females. But this is the first one that does that. But the two are attacked and eaten. Investigating the scene, Burt sees the fossil and realizes that it is a different breed of graboid. While Travis attends a local tribal dance with Nandi and drinks cow piss, a refuge worker named Taba is attacked by an ass blaster and is carried off. Burt orders the refuge to be evacuated, then heads out with Eric and Dreyer. They find the ass blaster in a cave, and Bert kills the flying monster, which also kills Dreyer when it falls from the sky. When Bert finds that the ass blasters have been laying graboid eggs, Eric reveals himself to be a poacher, planning to sell the eggs on the black market. He locks Bert in a metal cage and leaves with the eggs. Travis finds Bert the next day, but when their truck breaks down, they head back to the refuge on foot. In the desert, they find Eric's truck crashed, with Eric fleeing from a massive graboid with detachable and independent tentacles, which Bert dubs the Queen Bitch. Bert shoots the tentacles, and the Queen Bitch eats Eric. Bert agrees to let Travis go back in the cave and destroy the nest with a grenade, a white phosphorus grenade specifically, while he contacts Pilot Den for transport and armaments. In the cave, Travis kills an ass blaster, but he fails to destroy the nest. And when Den arrives... Den? You mean Ben?
No, it's Dan. That's what it's actually supposed to be.
Bert manages to use the helicopter's rockets to destroy the nest in one of the funniest scenes in the whole series. Den flies them back to their truck and helps repair the damage. Driving back to the refuge, Travis tells Bert that he is his son, the child of a one-night stand in Florida 40 years earlier. Having heard of Bert's exploits, Travis wanted to be like his father. At the refuge, the workers are attacked by ass blasters. Nandi, Amale, and Baruti manage to kill several ass blasters and a graboid in a scene that rips off the kitchen scene in the first Jurassic Park.
Yes.
They head for the village, where they discover that Amale is hiding a graboid egg, which is why the creatures keep attacking.
Jurassic Park 3.
Yep. The trio is attacked again. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, I just realized that's right out of Jurassic Park 3. And during the confusion, Amale wanders away with the egg. Bert and Travis arrive, finding the village under siege by the Queen Bitch's tentacles. Travis retrieves the egg, and Baruti gets Amale to safety. When the Queen Bitch arrives, Nandi suggests using the Daily Thunderstorm to kill it. Travis distracts it as the villagers construct a trap. When the storm erupts, Nandi lures the Queen Bitch in with the egg. Lightning bolts attracted by the same metal trap destroy both the egg and the Queen Bitch graboid. Afterwards, Bert accepts Travis as his son, inviting him to join him in his work. A mid-credits scene shows Bert and Travis now co-hosting Bert's reality show, and they kill a variety of monsters around the globe, which would have made for a fucking spectacular TV series, but no. Balls.
Thus, we got a cold hill.
Yeah. Thus ending the movie. So, how about this plot, Trev?
I think it's pretty fantastic. In execution, there's a fair bit of reference, or at least it reminds me of Tremors 2 to an extent, at least whenever it starts. But yeah, this is how you feel familiar, yet also up the stakes. The whole concept of exploring ass blasters laying eggs or graboid eggs has been part of the movie since it was still under Stampede Entertainment. So I'll go ahead and kind of get into a little bit of the history before we do our pros and cons. Is that okay?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, so the idea for this movie was suggested, or they started cooking it up, around the same time that Tremors 4 came out. And this was, of course, when it was still with Stampede Entertainment. But for whatever reason, we had an 11-year gap between 4 and 5. And in that gap, and I need to clarify this. I need to clarify this. I almost thought I lost you there. I need to clarify this because in my ranking I was saying misinformation. It's not the fact that they were taking too long. Apparently, in this 11-year gap, Universal decided that they wanted to continue doing straight-to-video films. But Stampede, particularly S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock, they wanted to do an independent theatrical film. That's what they wanted to do with number 5, but Universal said no. We've had success with the franchise as straight to video, so we want to keep doing that. They offered Wilson and Maddock executive producer positions, but, and this is the quote, I believe, both of them, Wilson and Maddock, they said, while they pointed out that they had no further contractual obligation to Stampede, they did offer us executive producer positions, but they also made it clear that in this new, even lower budget project, which doesn't look lower budget to me.
No, not at all.
In this even lower budget project, the Stampede partners' participation would be severely restricted, with little control over cast, directors, special effects, locations, or indeed any aspect of production. The restricted offer did not allow the writers any control over any aspect of the film, so they ultimately refused to be involved. So basically, it wasn't their baby anymore, so they said, we're going to walk. Without meaningful creative control allowing us to continue to guarantee the integrity of our Tremors vision, we sadly declined to be involved. So that's why Stampede was no longer involved with 5. So Universal hired different writers. They decided, let's film it in Africa. One thing, because I think it's cheaper.
That's kind of a dick move. Like, why restrict their involvement?
I don't know. And this is what's frustrating. I think it kind of taints 5, 6, and 7, although 6 deserves it.
Yeah.
It kind of taints these new movies because there's kind of a rift. You have people who are loyal to the Stampede people who did the original 4 movies in the series, and then you have what could be considered a cash grab, but I think it actually got off to a good start with this movie. So yeah. Anyway, that's the correct version of what happened. Universal said, this is what we want to do, and we're not going to do what you want, so that's that. So yeah.
Huh.
Kind of gives you mixed feelings, doesn't it?
Yeah, like I understand Universal's desire to want to, like, they want to stick with what works. Like it was a if it ain't broke, don't fix it type scenario. And I can understand why they would have wanted to stick to that, because after 11 years, and especially with Marvel and Disney kind of just reigning supreme for the last almost 10 years, if they were to make a theatrical independent Tremors movie with, I guess, still distributed by Universal or some shit, that would have been a big risk, because Tremors is not even remotely in the public eye very much anymore. So, but at the same time, kind of sounds like a hostile takeover.
Yeah, and I have such mixed feelings about it because I feel bad for them because they obviously gave us the original 4 movies, and so they're creators. But at the same time, I think they're so bitter that they don't realize that 5 is actually still pretty close.
Yeah.
To the So it's like I said before, they called 5 a farcical comedy, and I'm like, guys, y'all came up with the name Ass Blasters.
Yeah, like what the fuck?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think, I think they're laying the fact that they had their shit stolen from them, and they're so bitter about that. They're just letting that blind their views, I guess, for lack of a better word. They're letting themselves become blinded. For 6 and kind of 7, it's understandable, but definitely not for part 5.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's because even though they wrote a new script, I think that core concept was still carried over of what they wanted to do. I'm going to elaborate as we go on further. There's more stuff like deleted scenes and creature design, but yeah, we'll get into that with pros and stuff.
All right. So my thoughts, 2015 was the year of fucking reboot/re-sequels.
Yes.
Jurassic World is a sequel, but at the same time, I wouldn't even really call it like a reboot, because I would save the term reboot for something like Terminator Genesis, which that is a perfect example of a reboot. That is a complete reboot of the Terminator franchise. I would more call Jurassic World more like a reintroduction. It is a sequel, but it also reintroduces people to the world of Jurassic Park because it was what, a 14-year difference between World and 3?
I think so, yeah.
So, of course, that's a long time. Same goes for Force Awakens. It was a 30-year difference between Force Awakens and Return of the Jedi, not counting the prequels. These are the sequels to the original movies. So the Force Awakens reintroduces audience to that era of Star Wars. Same goes for Tremors 5. It also could be seen as a relaunch of the series, yes, which I like that term as well. Tremors 5 is both a reintroduction and a relaunch of the series. It's a relaunch of plans to continue the Tremors series, but it also reintroduces both new and older audiences to the new era of Tremors and the previous era of Tremors. And it does an excellent... Huh?
It's embodied by the little start of the movie with Bert. He says, "Let me catch you up to speed," and that's exactly what he's doing. So anyway,
Perfect job. And that's what this movie is. It's a perfect reintroduction and relaunch of the franchise. It introduces new audiences to what Tremors was before. It also introduces old audiences to the new era to come, despite it dipping after this. But whatever, it's still a good start. Fucking love this movie's plot. It feels a lot like a mix of the first 3 movies. You have the Graboids, of course, which are a big threat. You don't have the Shriekers, but you have like the go get them and kill them attitude of the second movie. And of course, you have the ass blasters and the eggs of part 3. So it's a good mix of the first 3 movies. It's given a fresh coat of paint and a new makeover, and it looks fantastic. Couldn't have done it a better way, in my opinion.
Also, the foreign soil thing is also carried over from 2. That's part of that whole mix there.
Oh, nice. Pros.
Pro number 1 is Bert.
Yes! Okay, so you know what? I think we're going to break the formula just a little bit. And we're going to talk, if we have the same pro, we're going to talk about it together. So pro number 1 for me, too, is Bert. Fucking A, he's awesome in this movie.
Probably, I would say between this and 3, if Bert's your jam, these movies, 3 and 5, spotlight him the best.
Yeah. Abso-fucking-lutely. He's such a no-nonsense badass in this movie. Every single thing out of his mouth is 100% true. He puts every character in his place. Everyone who's trying to be arrogant and saying, nah, I can do this by myself. Bert says, no, you can't. Shut the fuck up.
Well, it's interesting, too, because there for a little while in the first 3 movies, just when they thought they had everything figured out, a curveball would be thrown at them. And so at the start of this movie, Bert's older, and it seems like he has pretty much nailed down, okay, this is what these things do. Of course, as we later see, this new breed of Graboid has some more curveballs to throw at him. But at first, it's like, okay, Bert's the man. He knows what he's doing for real this time. So we need to listen to him.
Yep.
At least that's what the audience is thinking.
Yep, that's what the audience is thinking, and that's what all the characters who are familiar with Bert's stick are thinking as well. In particular, Travis. But yeah, Bert is fucking awesome in this movie. Michael Gross is obviously having a blast playing Bert this time around. He's having so much fun. He's so much fun to watch and listen to. And watching him act crazy and be funny, but also badass at the same time, it's so fucking entertaining. Like, never in my life have I heard a man make this line sound badass. I got you in my crosshairs, you fire farting son of a bitch. I love it.
Yeah, so you like the rocket launcher part. That's the funniest for you. The funniest for me is whenever he's stuck in the cage and he has his Nicolas Cage moment. Just completely goes over the top. Now, unfortunately, and we'll touch on this later for the next movie, the piss humor is a little off-putting. But in this one, it's fine because it just goes with the whole craziness of what Bert's doing. He references Heather. He references the HK-41, although it's supposed to be 91. There seems to be a bit of a mix-up occasionally where they say 41.
This African tribe has been using urine as an insect repellent for centuries. Oh, God.
Yeah. And even...
definitely an acquired taste.
And then a lion shows up and that pisses on him. And it's like, okay, we get it.
Shade at last.
I also like when the lion runs off and he says, "Pussy!
Pussy!" But yeah, the piss humor goes a tad bit overboard. I think it's in the next movie where it goes overboard, because then it's just dumb.
Wears out its welcome.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, the funniest part for me, there's still jokes lined throughout the movie, but the funniest part for me is when Bert basically is suffering from heat exhaustion. That was for me the funniest part. And technically, he's still kind of suffering from the effects of that when they fire the rocket launchers.
Yeah.
So, you could say it's an extension of that, but yeah, Bert is definitely the best human part of this movie. And to follow up on what I said about the history, Michael Gross, his involvement, he said in the behind-the-scenes featurette, which I like, by the way, it's actually oddly retro, he was the one who consulted the script writers and said, okay, I don't think Bert would say this. And he made sure that, for the most part, whatever he said was in character.
Mm-hmm. Which is smart.
He's been with the franchise the longest, and throughout the whole series, so it makes sense. And he also, this is a fun part, for you kaiju fans out there, he makes a direct quote reference to Pacific Rim. Nick, if you please. You remember? It's whenever Travis touches him.
Oh.
He says, Bert, yeah.
Don't you ever touch me again. 2, don't you ever touch me again.
Yes, exactly. The first thing I thought of was Pacific Rim when I saw that.
I didn't get that the first time I saw this, but the last time I watched it, I was like, was that Pacific Rim?
Yeah.
And I guess it was.
So there you go for genre fans. And they actually do this again in Shrieker Island. If you like kaiju, they do some name drops, which are appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, anything else, Nick?
Oh, I know. That was in the show. Never mind. No, other than Bert is awesome.
For sure. All right. My pro number 2 is the cast.
Pro number 2 is Travis for me specifically.
Yes.
I don't have much to say about the rest of the cast other than they're fine. They're well acted. They're what's the word? I just had it on the tip of my tongue. They're proactive in the plot and in like solving the problems. They're intelligent too. They know how to think on their feet. They're also a little bit witty, and also a little bit funny. But specifically, Travis is the one who I focus on. So Trev, go ahead.
Well, not much to say because you actually did in a nutshell. I like Nandi because she's brown sugar, or more like a caramel macchiato, or whatever Travis said. Um, we also have we also have an interesting element in that we have a human villain here. And he gets what he deserves. That's a nice little twist.
Oh, yeah. Which also happens in the next movie, too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so Travis, I'm going to let Nick elaborate whenever he gets to that point on his pros. But yeah, the rest of the cast, they serve their roles well. I enjoy them. I think Amale's adorable. She's not on screen a whole lot, so she doesn't have time to be annoying.
Thank God.
The sidekick of our villain, Dreyer, he's also fairly unlikable. In fact, there's a deleted scene that would have really made him seem even worse. The first deleted scene for this movie is actually during that first attack with his buddy Bassan. Apparently, in the original version of that, after Bassan gets eaten, he pulls his arm up, right? What's left of him. He looks at the arm. He takes the watch off so that, like he can sell it. And then he throws it back in the pit and he says, "If you're dumb, you bleed." And I was thinking, well, he says that later, but it's just really, that deleted scene makes him look even more unlikable. So yeah, we definitely got some villains in this one for sure, which is unique for a Tremors movie at this point.
And every single movie from here on out has that.
Yeah, and the series kind of delved into this a little bit, but they weren't. Well, actually, pretty much the same thing in that it's somebody who complicates the plot intentionally for nefarious means, not just because they're dumb, even though that factors in too.
Yes.
So yeah, again, like I said, I'll let Nick talk about Travis. Nandi, I think, is probably the first badass female character in the series.
Yeah.
She holds her own, probably the best so far of the female characters introduced. And yeah, I just like this cast. Bird is the highlight. There's also some not really victims, but there's also some the village that eventually becomes part of the finale. We get to see some other people more than the main cast who are in danger, which is also something new, a little bit. Although, again, the series could arguably be considered something that brought that into effect. In the fact that there's more bystanders than just the regular cast. So yeah, again, I like the cast, including Travis.
What do you think of Van Dyck?
Yes. So yeah, that's my pro number 2.
Well, what do you think of him?
Oh, Van Dyck. Well, at first, again, that's something that's calling back to Tremors too. Is that he's like the guy who was affiliated with the Mexican oil field. He shows up and is asking for assistance. But again, this is like what would happen if we found out, the Mexican oil field guy secretly wants shriekers for like a bioweapon or something. That'd be really like outlandish. This is kind of like that, but see, Van Dyck is a poacher and he wants to sell the eggs on.
Did not see that coming. I'll give the movie credit. Did not see that coming at all.
And again, it's a nice new wrinkle added to the universe. It's like, okay, now the black market is being brought into how these creatures inhabit the world. So yeah, pro number 2 is the cat. Pro number 3 is the photography.
Hang on. So I'll talk about Travis real quick. He's funny as fuck. He also is a fairly good sidekick. He has a lot of really good, witty back and forth banter with Bert. Like all of Bert's old man jargon is counteracted very well by Travis's wannabe millennial teenager and a 40-year-old man's body bullshit. And it's really funny. It's very well written. It's very clever and it's very entertaining. Like in that end of the movie, like the mid-credit scene with the redone TV intro, like motorcycle enthusiast, adrenaline junkie, and accused of checking out sexy co-eds. Guilty on all accounts. Of course you are. And just all of his dialogue back and forth with Bert, it sounds so much like two fish out of water that are conflicting with each other, but they end up finding kinship in each other. It's very, very well written and very entertaining. Did not know that he was played by the nerd dude from fucking the Scream movies.
Hey, did you ever see Son of the Mask?
Once on Nickelodeon a long time ago, but I actually remember really enjoying it, but probably because it's a kid's movie and I'm still very much a child at heart.
Hey, I like Son of the Mask too, but I bring it up because he was the dad. He was the lead in that movie. I just keep blowing your mind, man. It's great. But yeah, aside from Scream, that's actually probably what I remember Jamie Kennedy the most for is Son of the Mask, oddly enough. I'm probably the only person who can say that, maybe. But yeah, okay, so I'll just go ahead and say what I think of Travis. I kind of lumped him in with the rest of the cast. He's more competent and more witty fanboy type character like what Grady was. But Grady has some moments where he is kind of duh. But Travis never has that. Travis is annoying, but on the ball.
Also, he knows how to help. He knows how to ride a motorcycle. He knows how to use guns.
Exactly. And also, I guess, because this is the only place I could probably mention this, some more deleted scenes. There's quite an extended chase sequence that was deleted, which involved them going over a bridge that's mentioned in the movie, but we don't actually see it. They're being chased by a graboid. Travis gets knocked off while they're crossing the bridge. A piece of the bridge falls off and actually pushes him underwater, and he's attacked by a graboid under there. There's storyboards that show it. They film the actual action with the actors, but then the creature stuff is storyboards.
Sadly.
Anyway, and yeah, Bert gets across the bridge, and this is after he's found out that Travis is his son. It's actually kind of sweet and touching a little bit. He saves him. He pulls him out with a winch and whatnot. They actually use some of this footage at the end for the TV intro.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he pulls him out, and he says, you scared me to death. You know, it's like, oh, that's kind of sweet.
Yeah,
a
little bit.
He's still kind of a hard ass. I would have kicked your ass if you died. You know, stuff like that. And they also fishermen on the side of the river, and they say you're going to need better bait than worms. It's just a real funny little ditty. It's quite a fun little scene. I wish they had finished it.
Same.
But I guess they didn't. Yeah, I guess they didn't have the money. And there's also an extended talk whenever Travis tells Bert, you know, I'm an adult. I don't need a curfew. He basically disses Bert. He says, you know, you need to quit with all that military talk because you weren't even actually in the military. You're the guy that Boy Scouts would look at and say, oh, there goes Bert, you know, and he's making fun of him. And he says that, you know, you settled in perfection, Nevada, but the great thing about life is that it's imperfect. It was actually kind of a really deep quote that he said. And it actually explains Bert's he's kind of glaring at him right before Travis goes to like the party, the celebration, you know, at night. He's kind of glaring at him, and it adds better context to why he's glaring at him. Because he dissed him pretty much. He was like, you know, don't scold me because I know who you really are. And that also kind of would have made you think, how does he know all this stuff? And that would have led into the reveal. But anyway, yeah, some really interesting deleted moments.
Also, did not see the sun reveal coming when I first saw this.
Continue.
No, that's all I had to say. I didn't see the twist coming that he's Bert's son coming at all.
But then when you watch the movie after that, you're like, okay, he dropped a lot of hints.
Okay, he dropped quite a few hints. Actually, he started doing it from the start by calling him Pops.
Yeah, and that's why at the end, Bert says Pops to himself, and he's reflecting on it. He's like, oh, that's what that meant. So yeah, it all comes full circle very nicely, I might add. Hey Nick, guess what? This is a good movie.
This is a
I'll
very
never
good
hear that.
movie. Next. So actually, one of my pros is the cinematography as well.
Which number, though?
Oh, I don't really number my pros. I just kind of go all over the place.
Okay, so yeah, let's just talk about it.
Beautiful.
Probably, yes, it's probably the most stunning. We like the photography in the other movies, the greens in Tremors 2, the Lone Pine location in Tremors. But this is really stunning because it's Africa, and you really feel like
this is new but familiar.
Yeah. It's a landscape where you could imagine graboids being.
Absolutely.
Would have been like, but yeah, it just makes sense, and it also justified the redesign. Too bad they didn't stick with that for the next two movies, but it still justifies the redesign. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to say about it. I think Michael Swan is the guy who shot this movie. Let me see.
Yeah, Michael Swan.
Michael Swan, he does a wonderful job. And I think you said this reminded you of like a sci-fi original movie about lions. Did you say that, or was that somebody else?
No, well, it may have been somebody else, but yeah, Prey with Peter Weller and oh shit. I can't remember her name. But she's been in a few movies. She was in I, Robot and
oh yeah. Bridget Monahan?
That might be her. Name? This reminds me a lot of the cinematography that was used in the movie Prey. There's a lot of really wide open shots of the African landscape showing off the savanna and the wildlife reserves and just the different part. Because Africa is a strange continent because it kind of has all the different types of terrain all rolled up into one continent. You have rainforests, deserts, savannas, tundras, and cities all rolled into one. So it's just a really beautiful landscape to show off, and this movie really does it very, very, very well. And also, it's the perfect like duh moment, like oh, of course, a continent that's almost half of a fucking desert. Perfect place for graboids.
Exactly.
And yes, it does warrant the redesign because that's a very rough terrain.
And they would need to up their game, biologically speaking. Yeah, so I think I'll mention this because this is related to the location. Apparently, while they were filming, okay, I'm going to read this off Wikipedia. An inspection of the cave used in the film by a team from the University of the Witwatersrand found hominid fossils while they were filming the movie. The first fossil found was in a rock on the cave floor below some graffiti left by the film crew. So that's an interesting little bit of truth. What was that?
Oops.
What? Oh, yeah. But, yeah, that's just a nice little tidbit that I feel reflects the location because they even say, is it how do you say it? Gauteng?
What?
Is Gauteng the province? It's like a very rich paleontological location where a lot of finds are made. It's the cradle of mankind too. I think it's part of the subtitles. Like at the start of the movie, they say Gauteng Province, the cradle of mankind.
I think it's Gauteng.
Gauteng.
Oh, and I want to say something about the director, Don Michael Paul. He's your go-to guy if you want him to direct direct-to-video Universal sequels. He directed Lake Placid, the final chapter,
which was okay.
Jarhead 2, Field of Fire, Sniper Legacy, Kindergarten Cop 2, Sniper Ghost Shooter, or Sniper 6, Death Race Beyond Anarchy, and Scorpion King Book of Souls. And, of course, all three of the relaunch non-Stampede Tremors movies.
of which 5 and to a degree 7 are his best.
And then there's 6.
Yes, but I don't necessarily blame him for that. Maybe we should, but I think there's some other factors involved. But anyway, whenever you mention Don Michael Paul, the first thing I think of is Robot Wars. He was the robot pilot in that movie. Yeah, he's also an actor. So that's one of those neat little geek connections I made. So yeah, the photography in this movie is gorgeous. I think the only other new movie that has photography that rivals it is 7. The way they capture the islands and everything. That's seen it. But yeah, it's a beautiful movie to look at, and that definitely catches the eye of new viewers, at least in my opinion. So moving right along, the score by Frederick Weidman.
I don't have this one, so you can talk about it.
Yeah, he actually does. He also did 7. I don't remember if he did 6 or not. He does a much better job in 7. He actually has some very nice emotional cues in that. And also just captures the scenery. He does that here too. He brings in that country twang kind of guitar stuff, which you associate with Tremors, which is real good. I also like whenever they're flying into Africa in the helicopter and they see all the wildlife and they have that nice guitar riff, which feels very Tremors, you know. But the new music that he does in this movie, I think it does a good job suggesting the danger of the African landscape.
Yes.
It's kind of, it's intriguing. It's a little bit ominous. So yeah, not much to say there, except I just like the score. And I think he's the only 2-time composer in the series next to Jay Ferguson, who did 2 and 4. So I figured I should mention him because the score stood out to me. Yeah, I think I might be the only one who thought this next one, but there's actually quite a few references to the series in here, which I don't think they did 100% intentionally, but it's stuff that made me think, oh, Tremors the series. Number 1.
I don't have this one either.
Okay, yeah, so I'll try and be brief. As I was watching, I thought, oh, that's one. The main one is, it's not straight up a Mylar poncho, because it actually has some camo on it. But that's the first thing I thought of is Tremors the series, because that's where the heat blankets, the heat gear first came.
Oh, right, duh, yeah.
Yeah, and so that pops up here again. The Survivalist show feels like a natural evolution of the Survival School. Bert probably thought,
yes.
I don't want to deal with people directly, but I'll do this show. And because that's also an extension of the videos he did in Tremors the series.
Yes.
And there's also one little one that's a coincidence, I think. Whenever Dreyer is being a dick, whenever they first arrive, and Bert's asking stuff about a map, he says something about longitude and latitude. And the first thing I thought of was Rosalita in A Little Paranoia Among Friends, is that she didn't know about longitude, or she actually did. That's how she found out how to read his map, his satellite image. So again, purely coincidental, but that's the first thing I thought of is, oh, this is kind of like that one episode of Tremors the series. But yeah, there's a few things in there. There's a contradiction, which if I was real petty, I could make it a con. In the series, Night of the Shriekers, they said they came from the Sahara, but they're the traditional looking designs. And then here in this movie, we have a redesign, which is supposed to reflect the new environment. So again, yeah. Like
okay.
References.
Yeah, that's true.
But again, it's not a big deal unless you make it. So yeah, I like the references to the series, even if they're subtle and maybe not intentional every time, but I appreciate it. Pro number 6 is references to the original. I actually got pretty giddy the first time I watched this, and the opening title looked exactly like the font for Tremors 1. I was like, oh boy, we're back. This feels familiar.
Yeah.
And then even the rest of the opening credits, the font is exactly the same as the opening credits from the first movie.
Hey, Trev. This is a good movie.
Yeah. It is a good movie. I lost my train of thought. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, that's a very obvious reference to the original, which they did also to kind of do the whole reboot thing. It's like we're going back to the beginning, sort of, in a way. And there's also, from what I remember, there's a dialogue reference to the first movie. Travis at one point says, "You need to take the long view." And the first thing I thought of was, oh, that's like what Earl said in the, excuse me, that's like what Earl said in the first movie. Very subtle. I didn't notice it at first, but it stood out these last couple of rewatches. So yeah, nice little references to the original, which make the whole relaunch thing valid. So yeah. Pro number 7 and second to last is the monsters.
Okay, so I have the graboids as one of my pros too. So we'll talk about the graboids together. Bad fucking ass designs and monsters in this movie. The graboids, anyway. I love this version of the graboids. Very rugged, very muscular, very borderline dinosaurian / reptilian. Very, like, these graboids are fucking tanks. These are the graboids that you would really need to have borderline like either a bunker buster or a like some kind of tactical strike type of weapon to really kill. Like, these motherfuckers are total juggernauts. And I like how they establish that these are clearly different variants of the same species. And it explains because, the deserts of Nevada are fairly rough, but they're not nearly as rough as Africa. Africa is a very rugged, nasty, dangerous, hostile terrain. So it makes sense biologically for the graboids to be total juggernaut tanks.
Well, I mean, look at their wildlife, too.
And also, yeah, they need to be a bit larger for them to take on the larger wildlife that is in and around Africa. So they say that the North American graboids are about 30 feet long and they weigh 5 or 6 tons. I'm willing to bet that the African variant is about 45 feet in length and weighs about 10 to 12 tons. That's my estimate.
Yeah.
I absolutely love. It kind of sucks that their roars and growls aren't anything special. It's kind of like stock animal roars. But aside from that, I absolutely love the African design for the graboids. It's unique. It's badass. It's an excellent redesign. And you can still clearly, like, if you take one look at it, you're just like, that's a graboid.
Yeah. They also use it in that, they tease it in that opening catch-up. Basically, that digital model that eats that person, that's the African graboid design. And also the concept is supposed to be for the new design. Or the illustrations, which are very comic booky.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was the intent, though.
Yeah. So, since the Ass Blasters are included in this, I'm just going to kind of read off things that the effects guy said. Well, here, I'll say real quick. The only thing that bothers me about the Ass Blasters in this movie is the mouth. Very round. The mandibles are too small. There's some added mandibles on top of the head, which is supposed to, it's supposed to be, because they reference it with the headdress with the tribal dancers during that one scene.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually, I think they did for that reason. Aside from the mouth, I don't mind the feet because they have talons.
That I don't mind either. I like that they do make them look very bird-like, which was something. It was there in the original Ass Blaster design, but they even more so implemented that into the Ass Blasters with here because they're very much like big giant birds of prey. So that I do like.
It's just the mouth. The mouth is odd. It's too round, and I don't know why they made their mandibles and beak shorter. That's my only complaint, but it's not enough to really bring the overall idea down, because I still think they're pretty intimidating, especially when they take off and when they glide, because they look a lot more like birds of prey.
Mm-hmm.
But I still love them. They're actually even more threatening in this movie. They actually kill some people on screen.
True.
So, all right, so I'm going to kind of skim through this a little bit. Universal hired Cinemotion Visual Effects to do the new designs and everything, headed by a guy named Victor Trikov, I think is how you pronounce it. Anyway, he was saying things about designing them. I'm bringing this up because you were talking about, for the Ass Blasters in Tremors 3, the real-life inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Had some African termites were the inspiration for the new graboids.
That's what it is.
Yeah, during the pre-production, Trikoff visited a paleontological institute in Johannesburg and had the chance to speak with Adam Yates, one of the most respected paleontologists in the world. He said about a very interesting termite that still lives in the areas is able to burrow through the rock. First, it spits formic acid, melting the rock, and then using its magnesium mandibles to dig through it. That's how they dig. They were fascinated by that fact, that there were actually creatures kind of like the graboids. So they just took that creative license and made them 7,000 times bigger and able to dig 2,000 times faster.
Kind of a shame we never really see any real evidence of them being able to secrete formic acid in the movie.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that it's one of those tell and not show things, I guess you'd say.
Sadly, it's slightly frustrating. I feel like it would have worked just fine for, well, I'll talk about that when I get to Cold Day in Hell. But
yeah. So also based on that same termite, the beak, they made it obsidian black. The anatomy was changed a bit. The tendons, there was more mandibles. The beak shape was different. They wanted to make the graboids faster diggers, so
they corkscrew.
Corkscrew, yeah. Also, here's another quote: "Magnesium is black, so we changed the graboids' mandibles to black. We changed their bodies to a corkscrew shape because that seemed like the only way this creature could travel underground without displacing huge volumes of dirt." So there was clearly some logic behind their design for the graboids. And this is real weird because it seems like he missed the point of the original. And he also doesn't consider alien whenever he says this. Trikoff said, "The viewer always needs to see eyes in a creature. Otherwise, it is too anonymous and not as terrifying." And I was thinking, part of the reason the xenomorph is so terrifying is because there's no eyes you can connect to with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seemed kind of weird. Okay, so to finish this up, because this is going to give you some insight into why the Ass Blaster was redesigned. Trikoff said, "To be honest, I hated the original Ass Blaster design and thought that it could be greatly improved. My thought was to make it more vicious, more agile, and make it look different from everything else. Here, as always, the devil was in the details. The turbine at the end of its body holding flammable gas, the two curved bones that ignite the flames from that same turbine, the burned out scales left from hundreds of fire blasts, the small, weak wings used for gliding, the way the wings folded invisibly into the body," which I kind of like the way they folded. That was kind of cool. The grotesque mouth, that's the real departure there. They had literal wings instead of gliding sails, which, that's fine. But he says the aim was to bring the Ass Blaster much closer in appearance to the graboids.
Not even remotely.
Yeah, because they're directly related. And I'm thinking, well, they looked a lot more related in Tremors 3.
Mm-hmm.
So
they just look look like sleeker winged shriekers.
Yeah. So I don't quite understand his reasoning with like the eyes and making the Ass Blasters look more related, because for one thing, the creature not having eyes makes it more terrifying because you can't connect to it on that level. And the Ass Blasters are almost, mainly because of that mouth, they're they're much more of a radical redesign than the Graboids or the Shriekers that we see later.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's all I have to say about the monsters. I liked them. I like the effects in this movie. It's pretty good CGI for a direct-to-video movie.
One of my pros is the special effects too. It's 5. Pro number 5 for me is the special effects. They're phenomenal. Fucking stellar special effects in this movie. The CGI is very well done. It's very well animated. It's very well detailed. It moves well. It's integrated and edited well into the backgrounds. It interacts well with the rest of the film. I totally buy them as living, breathing creatures. All the explosions look great too. There was a little bit of practicals in this movie too. There's actually a little bit more than I initially thought that there was. There's a lot of gore, which is practical, and there's a lot of props that you see of the tentacles in this movie too. You don't see them for very long. They're kind of just like quick cut editing, but you can very easily tell that those are like practical props of the tentacles that they blow up and spurt orange blood all over the place.
There's photos of them too. Michael Gross actually posed with some of them. They look really cool. They're apparently renamed Grabbers.
Yeah, which I don't mind that name. I think that's fairly appropriate.
And they also, the mouth really reminds me of the design of the tentacles in Deep Rising, the way it opens up like that.
Funny that the chick who Bridget, whatever her name is, she was in Deep Rising.
Sure that wasn't Jean Grey from the X-Men movies?
I'm positive it was not. Famke Jensen, whatever the fuck her name is. No, that wasn't her. That was Bridget, whatever her name is.
Okay. So, yeah, the monsters in this are great, as they should be in any Tremors movie. And finally, to wrap up my pros, because I think you're going to say more about this too, the humor. And I think I've already cited there's humor scattered throughout like there is with any of the Tremors movies. But Nick, go ahead if you have anything else to say about it.
Pro number 6 for me is the humor. I'm going to retract my statement. 5 is the funniest of the whole series. God damn, there are some moments where I was just dying laughing. The psycho moment, the whole Nicolas Cage segment. Bastard Van Wyck! Please, Heather, take care of the HK91. I miss it. And to some extent, you.
Oh, man.
It kind of tastes like cow piss. It is. Did you eat the worm?
Oh, man. So much great stuff. Oh, and also, Nick, you need to, if they're on your copy, you need to watch the outtakes because they're kind of dirty, but they're funny.
Oh my God, this movie is just hysterical.
Oh, at one point during that cage scene, there's an outtake where Michael Gross says, "Yeah, they need to have me on camera say, 'Make me love pussy again.'" It's whenever he was talking to the lion. Yeah, it was real. It was real. Michael Gross is actually kind of dirty. He has a dirty line. He also made a dirty joke in Tremors 4 during the outtakes. That scene with Juan, the actor Brent Rome, he messes up his line and he says, blah, 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 fuck me again, or something like that. And then Michael Gross says, "Not tonight, it's our first date." So, really good. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, the humor in this movie is just spot on. I don't really get why a lot of people are saying like Hollywood was just being lazy by implementing humor in so many movies. You know what? I like it. It's funny. What's wrong with laughing? What's wrong with finding something funny? And I'm one of those people that's very easily amused. Like I still find fart jokes funny. I still find the 1.5 year memory of the one time where I fucked up my wife's makeup. She was about to put on lipstick, and I jabbed her in the ribs, and she just she was out put on lipstick, and when I did that, she just like smeared it up her face and gave herself half of a Joker smile, and she just went, and she gave me her evil eye look, and literally a couple days ago, I just remembered that, and I just started busted out laughing. So, and speak of the devil. I'm telling my viewers the story of how I fucked up your lipstick.
Why?
Because I'm explaining how easily amused I am.
Oh, yeah, very.
And she can attest to that too. So yeah.
Just cut my mom out for Roman.
Aw. I got you a present. It's on the bed.
Hurry up.
We're about done, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the humor in this movie is on fleek. I don't really get why a lot of people criticize Hollywood for implementing humor in a lot of franchises. What's wrong with that? If it makes you laugh and it's funny, by all means, go right ahead. Even Logan has touches of humor in it, and I think it's on fleek there too. What the hell are you giving me?
No. They're mini gummy bears. I don't know why, but I wanted them really bad, so I bought them. They're so small. And they're good. They're very little. They're babies. There's one in
Too
there.
many, make your tummy hurt.
Huh?
Don't eat too many; they'll make your tummy hurt.
Everything makes my tummy hurt. Breathing makes my tummy hurt.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Also, I got to eat because I was craving them.
Sugar cookies?
Specifically, the pink ones. That one.
Sure.
They're Valentine's Day ones. They're cute. Keep going.
Yeah, the humor in this movie is on fleek. So keep going, Trev.
Oh no, that was the last of my pros. So any ones you had that I didn't, go ahead.
All right, so did I say that was pro number 6?
Yes.
Okay. So I have 9 pros, so I have 3 more. Pro number 7 is the gore. There's not much to say, but I would also say this is definitely the closest the Tremors series ever got to being R-rated. There's lots of monster violence. There's lots of monster and human violence. There's quite a bit of blood, and there's lots of monster gore. And there's also all the dirty jokes and the language. This movie is pretty hard for a PG-13 film. And it does make me wonder, what would a Tremors movie be like if it did receive an R rating? Love it. Let's see how these cookies are.
Not bad.
Okay.
That answers my question.
How the fuck did you eat that in like one bite? That's like 30 bites for me.
Very carefully.
Or get the dick at you out. I can't understand what you're saying.
Not now. It's our first date.
Oh no, he's gonna steal it.
Pro number 8 is the action scenes in this movie are very, very entertaining. Because no longer are they limited by animatronics, people can actually be chased by monsters properly, and it's very entertaining. Not to say that the animatronics are bad per se, but now that they have CGI models, the editing is much more crisp, and the actions in the action scenes and chase scenes are a lot more, or not a lot more, but they're very entertaining. They're very well edited, and they're very thrilling. Also in the room.
I'm gonna go over there real quick and then I'll come back.
Yeah, the action scenes are very, very, very entertaining. They're very thrilling, very frequent. And that's something I want to say. I was very surprised at how short this movie was. I think it's the second or third shortest of the whole series. And because the pacing of this movie is very good, there's never a dull moment. So it's kind of like Tremors 3. It just keeps going and going and going. It takes a couple moments here and there to not necessarily slow down, but to set things up more. And those are the moments you need to take a quick break before the movie starts going up again. So that's good. And all the action scenes are very well done and very entertaining. And the last pro number 9 is, once again, this movie is an excellent a reintroduction to the series. But I like to think we already said what we needed to say. It brings us up to speed on everything that happened beforehand in just a few minutes. It introduces new audiences to Tremors, and it brings back the old audience to a new era of Tremors. And it's very well done. And I don't think it was done with a malicious intent. I don't get the sense that it was done that way at all. I feel like Don Michael Paul had a mission, and he was able to do it to a T.
I agree.
Cons.
All right, only 2, and I'll be brief because they're more like nitpicks. Number 1, it's a little unclear how many creatures there are at certain points.
There's definitely 2 graboids.
You can return this.
Yeah, and I think the second graboid was basically thrown in there just so they could have that really cool death scene with the car.
I can't use this for it. I needed a mesh bag for it. A mesh bag goes in the actual washing machine. I can't use this.
We'll talk about that later. Inconsistent creatures. Go ahead.
Yeah, so anyway, it mainly bugs me with the ass blasters because I wasn't really sure whether or not it was just one that they were dealing with in that first nighttime scene, but I think it was just one.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then later, I think there's at least 2 that attack the compound and then 1 in the cave.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
About 4 in general. So that's the only thing that really bugged me, is that it wasn't clear for sure how many there were exactly. So yeah, mainly, so again, just a nitpick, but it's something I noticed. Con number 2, and last con, is that Baruti almost seems a little unnecessary. I feel bad because the actor is a real big fan of the movies, apparently. That's what he said in the making of. At least the first 3. But he's basically thrown in there to kind of make a love triangle, which is never really followed up on anyway.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, well, what probably would have been preferable is that whenever everybody gets separated, it's Bert and Travis doing their thing. And then it could have been Nandi and Amale at the compound. I think they would have handled themselves fine. So yeah, it's not a big thing, but I think Barute is kind of extraneous. He doesn't really need to be there, but
superfluous, I think, is a better term.
Yeah, there we go, superfluous. So yeah, that's all mine. I know you're one con.
I have one con with this movie. I hate the ass blaster design. I absolutely hate it because it just doesn't look like an ass blaster. It looks like a demon firebird, because that was the one thing about all 3 forms of the graboids. They all had similar traits, being their mouths. Now, because this is still a different subspecies, I would have understood. And also the lack of shriekers. That's not a con, but that is just a big question. And Bert asked this, where the hell are the shriekers? Now, I guess you could kind of like infer that because it's a different subspecies, that maybe they're morphology just works a little bit different. Like they just kind of skip over the Shriekers just to spread the species as quick as possible because it's a much more harsh terrain. But I hate the ass blaster design of this movie. It doesn't look like a graboid. It doesn't look like it has those physical traits from the graboid whatsoever. Like the mouth doesn't look like a graboid's mouth. It just looks like a demon firebird. Now, as a monster, it looks fine. I like that it's much more bird-like in nature. It's got talons and it has like bird-like wings. But still, I hate this monster's design. It just feels too drastic of a redesign to be familiar whatsoever. It looks like a completely different thing.
Here's what would have made it better. They just needed that long beak. If they had kept the long beak, it would have been fine.
Would have been just fine.
It would have been a more exaggerated version of that. And real quick, I have a little headcanon theory about the Shriekers. I think there were Shriekers. They just either lived in the caves or they came out at night and they fed on the wildlife. And I also think they look like the design from Shrieker Island because in my headcanon, those are African Shriekers that were smuggled onto the island. Even though that's not 100% what they do, they have a bunch of unnecessary genetic tampering stuff in 7. But I digress. That's my headcanon.
Fair enough. Yeah, not much to say about that. I just hate the new Ass Blaster design. Doesn't look reminiscent of the classic Ass Blaster at all. But other than that, I got nothing else bad to say about this movie. It's a fucking masterpiece. So, final thoughts?
I would be remiss not to briefly mention Den Bravers, the helicopter pilot. I love when he comes back and gives them their gas, or actually helps out killing or trying to kill the queen bitch. I love the fact that he gets eaten and then he gets spit back up.
And then gives us another hilarious line. She was about 10 meters ahead, 20 craps behind. So I tickled her insides and she spit me out.
Yeah, that point in the movie, I was just having a blast because that's right after Bert does the rocket launching thing. I was really jiving with the movie because it was hitting on all cylinders for me.
Yep.
So,
one thing I will also say, this most recent watch, I felt the same feelings that I felt toward the end of the movie. I felt dread that the movie was about to end. So I was like, oh no, it's about to end. My life in heaven, it's about to end. When's the next Tremors movie going to come? Now, it wasn't quite the same, but it was something very similar. Like this was, Tremors 5 is like the last hoorah when the series is really, really good. Until Cold Day in Hell.
Yes, unfortunately. And then even if you skip it, I can understand why people have problems with 7. Again, it's a mid-range movie for me. But, all right, so final thoughts on this.
Yeah, final thoughts.
Nick, this is a damn good movie.
Trev, this is a damn good movie. This is a fucking masterpiece movie. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Tremors 5 Bloodlines is a fucking 10 out of 10 for me. I absolutely adore the shit out of this movie. It's very well made, very entertaining, a great fan-friendly Tremors movie. If anyone says otherwise, fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. All right, then.
So, yes, I would probably give it a 9 or 10. Those are both the highest ratings you could probably give. I think it's unfortunate that some people involved, whether they're fans or the creators, are kind of being a little petty and they cast kind of a shadow over these new movies. That's the only problem with this new phase of the franchise. But yeah, I think what Nick said was right. This is Tremors done right without the creators. They've kind of faltered after this point. But yeah, it's 9 or a 10 for me. Really great.
Agreed. So, tune in tomorrow as Trev and I begrudgingly trudge through the massive downgrade that is Tremors: A Cold Day in Hell. Get off your ass and watch the movie, or I'm gonna whip you.
Oh, I'm gonna watch it. It's on Netflix because I don't own it, but yeah.
Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think, and hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, and share this video with your friends. And as always, go out and fucking watch Tremors 5. God damn it, it's a good movie. Hey Trev, it's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
And I will see you guys in the next video.